Good morning, everyone. My name is Edin Erkocevic, and I am the co-lead of the Metals and Mining Practice Group EMEA at Business Sweden. I would like to welcome you to this webinar, where we are to present you our latest report, New Direction for Global Mining, that explores the current trends and market drivers forcing change within the mining industry, as well as to discuss these trends with our panel. Before we start, I would like to remind you that this webinar is being recorded. Let me introduce our agenda for today and give you a short overview of Business Sweden. We have divided this webinar into three parts. First, the presentation of our latest report. Then we will continue with a panel discussion with our three experts, Mr. Stevan Topalovic from EPROC, Mr. Sergei Opanasenko from the Eurasian Resource Group, and Mr. Manik Karn from Business Sweden. We will then round off with a Q&A session. You may write your questions anytime during the presentation in the chat. So, what do we do at Business Sweden? We help Swedish companies grow global sales and international companies invest and expand in Sweden. We are business developers with a unique mandate. The uniqueness is originated from our governmental assignments, together with the foreign ministry, the embassies, access to governmental stakeholders and potential governmental-owned buyers and clients within where we are present. We offer strategic advice and hands-on support to all types of companies. We have a so-called local presence, global and local. We are a global organization and operate with local presence in more than 40 markets in 3 regions, Americas and EMEA. In Sweden, we operate from our headquarters in Stockholm and through our representation in 20 locations in Sweden. New Direction for Global Mining. The full report is available on our website, if you have not downloaded it yet. Together with me today, I have my colleague Kublai Orman, consultant and part of the Metals and Mining Practice Group EMEA, who will support me in presenting this report. The aim of this report is to support you, companies in the mining sector, from production to OEMs to technology enablement companies, to navigate on the global mining markets of today and the coming years. Among our group of Business Sweden experts within the mining sector, scattered around EMEA from Johannesburg to Moscow, we have noticed developments in the mining sector that we would like to share with you today. And these might have impact on your businesses in various ways. The brakes have been put on the global economy by trade wars, regional conflicts, dampened inflation, negative interest rates, and most recently, the COVID-19 pandemic crisis. While these negative impacts are hampering certain aspects of growth, there are trends running in parallel, which are substantial opportunities for Swedish mining technology and expertise to support growth in some of the world's emerging mining markets across Europe, the Middle East, and we have collected the 5 most important trends as we see and proposed actions for you on how to act in order to benefit and catch the opportunity arising from these trends. We see an unclear economic outlook, which is lowering demand, an economic slowdown, decreasing consumption due to COVID-19 and global trade wars, as well as unpredictable commodity prices. We see that geopolitics and protectionism arise. Developed versus developing countries are running for market control, growing global competition in most metals and minerals production, a low carbon transition that is driving demand for new minerals, There is the growth in sustainable energy technologies. Electric vehicles are gaining momentum. We also see that clean and safe mining is setting new standards. Global warming is increasing the pressure on creating sustainable value chain. And there are big discrepancies between developed versus developing markets. At the same time as media and the society is more and more attentive to this issue. And digital transformation is accelerating also in the mining sector. New technologies are providing vast cost reduction, and production efficiencies. We see an aging workforce in developed markets and a lack of skills in developing markets. We would like to run you through these 5 trends more in detail and also give some recommendations what you can do to grab the business opportunities arising from these trends. I will now let my
colleague. Can I request you? Most of us are not able to hear your voice very clearly. There is an echo. Could you try to fix that, please? We have been trying, but it's not working from our end.
Okay, is it better now?
No, not really.
Is it better now?
Yeah, let's try that.
Yeah. Sorry for that. So we would like to run you through these 5 trends more in detail and also give some recommendations as we see it to what you do to grab the business opportunities arising from these trends.
Your voice is really, it is hard to understand it.
I think this is echo problem.
Yes, I think that we should mute ourselves. All of us.
Yeah, I tried to mute everyone. Let me. Okay, we will. My colleague Kublai Orban will now run you through some of the trends, and we will try to fix the echo problem. Kublai, please. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. So the first trend, unclear economic outlook. First of all, before I continue, can everyone hear me properly?
Yes.
Much better. Okay, great. So the first trend, unclear economic outlook, which is perhaps the most obvious, is the current uncertain economic outlook, which we're globally in, obviously affecting the mining industry as well. And we can see this impact mainly through record low PMI, impacting the need for materials, and as a result, also through the slashed commodity prices during the first part of the pandemic. Hence additional cause creating uncertainty in the markets. It's very important, mainly from a technology and solution provider's perspective, to understand these drivers or the macro level data in the verticals that you operate in, to identify which markets indicate a more speedy recovery, but also to understand where to put your resources and make proper strategic decisions. As these drivers, of course, will put even more pressure for cost cutting, making mining companies more prone to increase operational excellence and efficiency. Another issue related to this, to the topic, which has increased in importance, which is quite interesting, is the question of data and sources reliability on international markets. We can see that mainly in how the pandemic has been managed in terms of validity of the statistics, but also where official economic recovery data is questioned, mainly because, well, it's hard to forecast at the moment, but also due to the need to keep the investment climate attractive. So what do you do? Well, the recommendation, as we call it, is to zoom out for a bird's eye view which really means to take a step back from your perhaps legacy processes in mainly sales and operations planning and the input you use in that process. Organizations usually work with some form of run rate, applying a multiplier based on a GDP or the industry growth and its general demand planning. You talk to your sales force, you look at the pipeline, but organizations are usually bound to a legacy process and data. And though the situation we're in right now with the pandemic, we believe has shown that we need to really reconsider the gathering, the validation and interpretation of market input data and how they formulate into KPIs you're working with. And this is something we believe will be important for the coming at least 1 to 2 years. Next slide, please. I'm not sure if the slide has changed. Yeah, okay, thank you. The second trend we're seeing, which is geopolitics and protectionism, which is not as obvious but still important, which is the protectionistic approach international markets have been developing in recent years. And there are mainly 2 reasons for this, for why this is happening. And the first is to mitigate any supply risk of minerals and materials of high economic importance for the future, but also to protect the local or the own markets due to increased international competition, which has developed the past 20 years or so, especially in developing markets. And when we look at the markets that have experienced the highest growth in production volume change, these are mainly developing markets, and some of them considered politically unstable. And this has put both the EU but also the US in a position to really to reevaluate their value chains, especially where there are vulnerabilities, basically trying to bring back production from faraway markets. But what does this really mean for technology and solution providers or suppliers to mining companies? Well, as markets show tendencies of closing in, if you will, we're seeing legislation requiring more and more locally made products or other forms of local presence, though locality means different things legally in international markets and industries. So the recommendation, what we call Be Local, Act Global, really means 2 things. So first of all, understanding the legal barriers for market entry and showing proactivity in this area. Basically, what does locally mean, locally made mean for you and your products, and take actions accordingly. And the second is to build stronger sales channels internationally, especially if you're working with distributors, basically dare to evaluate them properly depending on their performance, identify alternatives, properly incentivizing them, and making sure they focus on your products. And that is the second trend and recommendation. Next slide, please. The third trend, which we call low carbon transition and driving demand for new materials. This trend is about the rapid transitioning we're seeing from high carbon resources and technologies to low carbon technologies and resources. And the most popular example of this would be the move from combustion engines to electric motors and energy storage technologies. We can also see the very fast adoption of solar and wind power, as well, as you can see in these graphs here. What's important here is that these low carbon technologies are very much dependent on a certain group of materials. So kind of coming back to the situation of securing resources and having reliable value chains, investments in these materials are and will continue to grow. So for suppliers of mining technologies, the recommendation scout for new investments globally really means to be more proactive in terms of identifying the opportunities related to these materials and on international markets, validating the opportunities and investments, early on establishing the right connections with the full spectrum of stakeholders with the investments, and understanding the decision-making processes and criteria. So basically, engage as early as possible with these investments. Back to you, Eden.
Thank you very much. I hope that my voice is better now. So, the trend that we see is that clean and safe mining challenges actually are creating new opportunities. Is the voice still bad? Okay. I really don't know what to do. Is it a or I don't. Let me just check if I can change my microphone, but unfortunately I cannot. I don't have any other microphone on my computer.
Now it sounds better, I think. When you're closer to the microphone, there is less echo and less these variations in the sound quality.
Yeah, I'm not using a headset or anything. Okay, if it's better like this, I will continue like this. So the fourth trend that we see is that clean and safe challenges are actually creating new opportunities. Clean and safe mining, as you know, consists of a range of areas covering everything from health and safety, delivering on key environmental performance indicators. In most markets, there is a growing sentiment for sustainability and public frustration for irresponsible practices, not least due to several accidents in the near past. At the same time, international investors are pressuring miners to invest in clean technologies and high credit loans. This is also starting to be a major requirement for loans. In order to catch the growing opportunities here, we think it is important to build your sustainability networks. An early engagement with investors, local municipalities, as well as mining companies themselves is required. As you can see here in an example of a governance structure, the stakeholder structure can be very complicated from case to case. Below world example, where you have a local conglomerate who in turn has a subsidiary mining corporation of considerable size, which in turn has multiple entities operating companies, which in some cases with international investors. And all of these are in different adaptation phases in terms of sustainability. So mapping this structure, ambassador that can push your solutions and engaging with them is crucial. It is important to build this network also around the ecosystem influence, the business to government, business to community, as well as business to business. And this is all in order to impact the sustainability adaptation and eventually the choice of technology. So full understanding of the decision-making process from multiple angles is the key to build your sustainability here and to benefit from this opportunity arising. The last trend that we want to highlight here is the digital, where we see that this, of course, brings opportunities on all markets. Many new digital technologies will bring major production efficiencies and opportunities to cut costs. those technologies comes risk and implications of change management. The maturity of the mine will play a key role when it comes to defining the business opportunity. In low maturity mines, where low labor costs are often a barrier, there are still opportunities to create operational efficiency gains with smaller changes. Upskilling, but also, don't forget, through selling products which developed countries may see as standard equipment. Late adopters can be. So what we say here is that it is crucial to understand the digital challenge in each case, and you need to adapt your digital offering to the mature time and each particular case. One size does not fit all. In summary, from this report is to zoom out for a bird's eye view due to the continued uncertain economic outlook, be global due to the rising resource nationalism, scout for new investments due to the increasing demand in low carbon materials, build networks to influence the full spectrum of stakeholders early on, and understand the digital challenges to make sure you don't miss opportunities and address the real needs. As Business Sweden mining practice, we are active basically on the continent, helping Swedish businesses with various projects. Direct engagement with mining operators in order to win open deals, mining, capacity building and community development, as well as establishing and running various B2B platforms. Semi-governmental mandate, we can not only support in strategic management and business development, but also gain access and influence at high level in all channels, B2G, B2B, and business to community. As you can see here in our example of activities, our services span across a broad spectrum, everything from business intelligence to stakeholder mapping and all the way to public affairs. If you have not downloaded the report yet, please do so. We will send this presentation later with the link. There is much more to read. You can find a brief overview, including trends and market opportunities on a sub-regional level. Africa, Middle East, Central and Eastern Europe, and Russia and Central Asia. So please download and read more about these opportunities and trends. Now, I would like to invite our panelists to turn their microphones on and welcome you today to this webinar and to a short discussion. We have with us today Mr. Stevan Topalovic, Vice President Business Development, Underground Rock Excavation Division from Epiroc.
Hello.
Hello, Stevan. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Mr. Sergey Opanasenko, Executive Director, Operational Excellence and Innovation at Eurasian Resources Group. And also our colleague Manik Khan, who is Program Manager, Smart Materials at Business Sweden. I would like each of you to shortly introduce yourself and give a brief overview of yourself and your organization, and thereafter we will start the discussion. So we can just follow the screen here. We can maybe start with Stevan.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Stevan Topalovic, as you can see on the screen. And yeah, focus on the picture on the screen, not the one that is camera showing. I'm aircraft engineer by education, but ending up in mining for the last 25 years on positions globally from Kazakhstan, Australia, Italy, Sweden, Poland, etc., and mostly also in Sweden in the global roles like this one. Epiroc as a company is a company that separate from Atlas Copco, probably everybody knows online, in 2018. And we are a company of 16,000 employees roughly, and with a turnover of 4 billion euros, listed in Stockholm Stock Exchange with the 5 divisions, and division is the highest entity in the company, and that's each division is actually specifically dedicated for certain area. So you have underground division, surface division, service division, technology division, and drilling tools and attachments division. So that's pretty much all for the moment.
Thank you, Stefan. Sergey?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I hope everyone is healthy and safe. I work for a company called Eurasian Resources Group. It's an international metals and mining company coming from Kazakhstan. We have a diversified portfolio of different businesses, all in commodities and metals. It's ferrochrome, aluminium, iron ore, cobalt, copper, operate in different regions. Most of our business is in Kazakhstan, but we have assets also in Africa and Brazil. I work with the company for almost 6 years now and responsible for operational improvement of our business and innovations, new technologies, and R&D. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergey. And Manik?
Thanks, Edin. Good morning, everyone. Good morning from cold yet beautiful Stockholm. I'm Manik. I am a global program manager within a smart industry and new materials ecosystem, as we call it, within Business Sweden here in our headquarters in Stockholm. I have a background in mining engineer. I'm a mining engineer by education and have worked both in mines as an engineer, but also as a management consultant in different mining companies in Asia, in parts of Africa and Europe. In my role here in ecosystem, I initiate and facilitate initiatives within Team Sweden, where we support Swedish companies to leverage our strengths within private and public sector to win deals globally, as well as to support international companies with investment opportunity in Sweden. So looking forward to the discussions.
Thank you, Manik. I thought that we could stop sharing the presentation and go over to live.
Edin, you might need to speak a little closer to mic. It was quite better when you were speaking closer.
I will just go over to live picture in the panel, we will, just for the audience, we will try to focus on 3 topics, so not on all the terms. We will try to focus on international expansion, clean and safe mining, and digital transformation. So please, if you have any questions, you can write your questions in the chat, and so there's plenty of time. I thought we could start with Stefan. Epiroc has today a vast global presence, where you personally have been part of the journey for many years, and you have also been on the board of a Swedish SME, Mobilaris. What would you say were the success factors for Epiroc then, and what challenges do you see in the future for further international growth for Swedish technology providers in the mining industry globally?
Yeah, that's a good question. First of all, we've been, for the company itself is almost 150 years old, and we were also part of Atlas Copco for almost all the time. Since last 2 years, we are not. So the point of the success factor, you can say, is the openness, actually, to open mind, flexibility, and humbleness. I think those were the 3 guiding principles that we were using over the decades. And myself, I was opening Atlas Copco office in Kazakhstan in 1999. And then it was really important to listen what are the customer requirements, what is the customer needs, to listen what are actually customer specifics, what are the technology requirements then and now, and also to be very humble when you have a solutions to the customer that are more advanced than the customer expect. How to present to the customer, not to be, oh, we are smart, we are a Swedish company, you know, we have a higher and superior technology, we are coming here to teach you how to do the business. This is not going to work, and this is never well accepted. So basically flexibility, open-mindedness, and humbleness in approach to new market overall.
Thank you, Stefan. Manik, you mentioned that Business Sweden has an industry program structure and a new materials program. Could you please introduce shortly for our participants here, what does that mean, and examples of how do we help companies to grow internationally?
Yes, absolutely. Happy to do so. So those of us who know Business Sweden, they might know that we position ourselves with broadly two offerings. One offering is very much individual companies, which we call advisory services. It's like consulting, helping them grow, part of a strategic advice as well as operational support. So that's one part of our service offering. The second part, which I am part of, is what we call promotional program. And here it's more of a support where we use our government hat to bring best of public sector, which is the policymakers, the ministries, the embassies, but also the innovation partners like Vinnova, in mining case, the former SIP stream, or now it's Swedish Mining in innovation, as well as the industry associations, and bring them together and in order to help Swedish companies win the deal. So as an example, just there are many mining operators who have already gone on, have a plan of turning into more greener mine, more sustainable mine. For example, we have Glencore, BHP, Codelco. They've all put aside significant budget to convert into sustainable mines. And they have a specific deadline for doing that. And there we support Swedish technology providers to bring together our policymakers to engage at the right level, provide financing solutions in terms of feasibility. I think, Edin, you showed those toolboxes to bring it all together to help them increase their probability of win. We also bring these mine operators to Sweden to show them the use cases with our mining operators like LKAB, Boliden, and inspire them how this can be done in their own mining operations. So that's the package we provide from our ecosystem and program promotion.
Thank you, Manik. You mentioned winning the mine. When it comes to, so to say, winning the mine operators, we mentioned earlier we have low maturity, high maturity mines. We have those operators who are readying themselves for the future, and those who are still waiting. To Sergey and Stefan, can you share your experiences on the differences between working with a mine and a low maturity mine?
Sergey, you go first.
Yes.
It's difficult to categorize them the way you look at low maturity, high maturity. If we look at our portfolio of assets, we have very different companies. We have companies that are 10 years old and 60 years old, and we have companies that are changing fast and doing well, and companies that are not doing as well. And the key factors that I see on what defines a well-performing company and a company that can adapt and become a high maturity company in this market is all tied to culture. I think everyone needs to realize that the business cycles now are much shorter, that there's a very competitive environment and the need for reinvention every several years in terms of your business model, in terms of your operations, in terms of your support functions. And we see that the mines and companies that realize this, that have a top management buy-in, of this concept, and that can engage the workforce to contribute with ideas, to think about these issues. They are doing well, and of course, we need as a asset manager, as a portfolio manager, we need to delegate a mandate to this company, a mandate to experiment, to make mistakes, to try new things, but do it in a environment where you control the risks, where you ensure that there's a health and safety protocols and standards, there's an environmental compliance, but have flexibility to try new things and to experiment with new stuff. And if we get to combination of this cultural, of these soft factors, we see good results usually in different markets. It doesn't depend on the region. It depends more on the culture of individual company.
And I definitely agree with that last sentence, Sergey. We cannot say that the specific markets are low mature or higher maturity, but it's more customer. And even in the customer, it's a question of ambition level of a management, because sometimes the maturity level of the company is low, but the management has a higher ambition. And then you have a discrepancy. We do have a portfolio that is really covering the high range from very simple direct control system, as we call it, machines, to high automated machines. But we also see in the customers that they have all mixture of the fleet. They have CAN bus machines, so-called, and computerized or hydraulic at the same mine. And then you have a different level of, for example, infrastructure, like a network to connect the machines or to collect the data. So the ambition level also varies from customer to customer. And we are trying really to make a solution which is actually the one that suits a customer best. And again, the one that I was referring in the beginning, with a humble approach that, okay, maybe you should try this and let's give a chance to this model or this type of a technology, and to guide them slowly into more productive behaving. But that also usually is connected with the change of management as well. So it's not that simple. It doesn't belongs only to equipment, the change. It's a lot depends on the infrastructure and human resources, you can say, in general.
Do your products significantly differ for different operators, so to say?
Yes. We have from direct control system machines that are from 80s, 70s even, to very modern, fully automated machines and loaders and trucks, etc. And from maybe tier 1 or 2, not maybe tier 1 or 2 engines to battery machines. So from a propulsion point of view, big gap or big span in technology, and from a control system, how much manual is work required. And sometimes you can have mixed in the same mine.
And do you see, I mean, and this is actually a good discussion, because you say there is no low maturity market and high maturity market. It's about the customer. So you don't see a trend that is connected to a certain geography. You mean that you have ambitions low and high in most geographies?
10 years ago, that was a much more clear split, but now it's much more, for example, Australia, people perceive as a advanced market, but they were actually very, very traditional and very conservative when it comes to new technologies. But that was changing now. China as well. But again, in China, you have a really big gap, and ambition level, again, especially from a construction company side, is to apply the highest possible computerization, you can say, or new technology, or digitalization of raw, more than in mining in China. But in Africa, again, Mongolia, we sold CAN bus machines in Mongolia 10 years ago to Rio Tinto project in Ulaanbaatar. Toigo, sorry. So it really doesn't really depend on the market as much as it was 10 years ago.
I agree with Steven, and when we look at digital transformation and technologies, for us this is an opportunity not to go through traditional way, step by step, what has already been done, but cut the corners and maybe accelerate and reach the level of mature markets in the regions where traditionally they are considered as low maturity markets.
Mm-hmm.
You mean there is a I mean, we hear now there is, of course, there's ambitions low and high, so we have also high ambitions, but there's also a perception that mining operators are slow in adapting digital technologies. Is this true? What is the reason for that? Sergey.
I think it's true. It's a fact, and we see it. It's confirmed by multiple studies. One of the factors that I see is definitely it's a conservative industry with high risks, high capital intensity, and a lot of legacy equipment and systems. As Stephen also mentioned, we have different machines, different IT systems, and it's very difficult to do a big transformation when you have all this background. And second reason, I think it's the economic benefit of digital technologies in mining is not always obvious. Digital ensures a lot of transparency, and we need transparency to operate effectively, but it's very difficult to explain this investment in digital with just transparency. We need to have a clear business case or to be able to track it. So when we think about digital, we always look for a business case, and it's not always there. Automation, for example, is not applicable in all regions and doesn't pay back the investment. So we are very selective in which technologies and we apply and introduce.
Any comments from your side, Stefan?
Yeah, I definitely agree. The only thing is that, again, we are talking about ambition levels of management, and very often purchasing department or the management likes to have the latest technology, but then that technology we sell and we deliver, but then it never really picks up because new technologies also require behavioral change, and that takes more time. And that's again coming back to change of management, because we have machines that and technologies and the systems installed, delivered to the customer because they wanted it, but they never actually became a part of their DNA. And that takes more time because it's a behavioral change. And that's where mining is actually more traditional, because it's more, it's less young people there, for example. It's more mature people that are get used to do same for decades and change, and because the new system usually requires new type of a maintenance, either maintenance of data or flow of the data or the maintenance of the machines, and that is something that is a little bit out of what they got used to do for the last decades. And that's, I think, so it requires behavioral change, not only technology. And that's why that's pick it up so easily and so quickly as we would like.
Do you think that the digitalization of the mining industry will bring more young people to the sector?
Well, we certainly hope so, and it seems like because there are plenty of companies in Australia, all over the world, that are doing a lot of work in digitalization field on underground and surface mining, and there are a lot of young people working in these companies, and I suppose that will be the same one on the other side of the data. You can say the users, not only programmers.
What is your experience, Sergey, among your companies? Do you have more young people coming? How is the situation with workforce?
We have, for example, if you take Central Asia, we have a clear trend of attracting younger people. It's a general demographic trend here. So we see more younger people joining our company. It's a new generation. I wouldn't say it's driven by digitalization, but the digitalization requires new skills from these people. So now we're looking not for metallurgists, but we look for computer operators, people who play video games. They can be very effective in operating underground mining equipment, and it's I think it's a big shift of paradigm, and we will have to adapt to it. And I think mining industry, if we increase the level of innovation in the industry, will be more attractive to young people, and it will be easier to retain talent and to provide them with opportunities that they are looking for. But it's also a big challenge. It will take time, and it will be a big effort to transition.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at automation, remote control, and everything, it's more of a gamification of that might attract the new talents.
Yeah.
But one issue that actually always comes up when you talk about mining, and that maybe is also on young people's mind, is of course the sustainability, the environmental issues. For ERG, what are the most prioritized issues in this field?
I think ERG as a company strategically has a very broad definition of sustainability. It might be even broader than what you presented. We look at all stakeholders of our ecosystem and try to understand how to find a balance between the stakeholders. But if you narrow it down to environment and clean energy or clean technologies, our priorities are, first of all, renewable energy and energy efficiency. So we have a portfolio project in different regions on introducing new energy sources and replacing our traditional coal generating energy. We have a priority on reducing pollution from gas, dust, reducing CO2 emissions that we have, and this is also in Kazakhstan, for example, mandated by the government with clear targets for the next 20 years. And another priority is industrial recycling and waste reprocessing. And here it's a very interesting part of our sustainable strategy, because we see it not as our commitment to improve the environment, but more as a business opportunity. And we have, for example, in Africa, we have finished a project on processing of copper and cobalt tailings in DRC, and this is the project that speaks to two of your priorities. It's a clean and safe mining, where we work with the tailings and produce new cobalt from this waste, but also it's a low carbon transition, because the idea of the project was to move to new metals which are required for batteries for the new clean industry. So projects like this, and we have now a dedicated division in the company which is working on recycling projects. We can see that they can also generate a sizable business case for the company and be part of our business.
You mentioned that you engage with a broad spectrum of stakeholders from the ERG point of view. Let's say, what are the main stakeholders that you work with? For example, in these two projects, which stakeholders are important for you when it comes to clean and sustainable mining?
I think these are two groups. Primarily, of course, it's local communities, people who can feel these problems and deal with them every day in places where they live, and they can also see these improvements, and they can benefit from them directly. And unexpectedly, another stakeholder is people within the companies, our employees, who have these ideas and want to drive new ideas or want to engage with innovations, new technologies. We can give them opportunities with projects like this to try something new, to experiment, and to have a positive impact on the environment, while also developing certain competencies and working on some projects. So we have now a system within the company where everyone can submit an idea and be part of implementing this idea and even spinning off into a new business. And people are participating actively in this.
Very interesting. Actually, in our report, we recommend as an action build your sustainability networks. Manik, what do we mean with this? What does that mean? And how can Business Sweden help companies to build their sustainability networks?
Yes, no, it's a pretty generic advice in one sense, but it is today, every country, almost every country and every company has an intention as well as obligation to become more greener and sustainable. And I think both Sergey and Stevan touched on this topic, but let me just repackage more or less what they said. Today, if you see, we have mining companies have broadly speaking, two external challenges and two internal challenges. The external ones are today it's becoming difficult to more and more difficult to get exploration licenses. There is much more pressure on the companies, and the reason is that mining has an image problem. Today, if you talk to environmentalists, we are also the easier punching bag. They attack and they say mining is the most polluting industry, and it has become a bit of an ironical stand because environmentalists are pushing for greener technology, electric and solar and wind. But then when it comes to actually making that technology happen, you need materials and minerals which come from mine. So there is a bit of a contradiction there, and therefore an opportunity for us. If you talk of the internal challenges, we have the two, which is more and more the ore grades are depleting, more and more mines are getting underground. And there we have a challenge of more cleaner technology. The second one is what I think Sergey mentioned, is a community issue. There is conflict over water, land, and resource, which has to be shared with the community. You have to cohabit with the local community. And how do we do that? And maybe if I can point third one, which I think Stefan also mentioned, is the upskilling or cross-skilling. As we go more into autonomous vehicles, more like Sergey said, more from metallurgists to video gamers. So how do you upscale? How do you ensure that your new going to work with the new technology, and how do you ensure that your old employees are retrained? Those are the questions which in our program we try to answer. And I think you showed that in one of the slides there, our engagement. And there we have programs where we work with policymakers, where we work with local community development together with the mining companies to ensure that this behavioral change, which Stefan was saying, behavioral change comes from looking at the example. People believe that this is not going to happen, not invented in my backyard, so it's not going to work. But we try to show them inspiration, show them not just from Sweden, but also from the similar markets where it has worked. So for example, in Brazil, we try to show in Chile, in Peru, in Colombia, in Africa, in Western African markets, in Southern Africa. So we try to bring in positive examples where things have happened, using the holistic approach like we have in Sweden, right from exploration to mine operations, material movement and processing. Things are connected and how we have done. That's what we call sustainability network building. Ensure that we try to show them the holistic picture.
Thank you, Manik. As a technology supplier, how can technology suppliers support mining companies in the right direction to reach their clean and sustainability goals?
Was the question for me because I didn't hear the first letter?
Yes, exactly.
It was okay.
Yeah.
Well, first and outmost, people in general have a fear for change, and mining companies, and Sergey was, it's a lot of capital invested, so to reduce the risk is the major point for every mining company. Changing technology and changing management or whatever related to incoming technology, regardless if it's zero emission, digitalization, automation, requires is coming with a risk. And we are trying to reduce that risk, first of all, with a lot of interaction with the customer, in the meaning of consultations, what exactly they want to resolve. Is it a heating problem in the mine? Is it air conditioning or ventilation of the mine, etc.? That's the first thing. Second, to enable them, fire, for example, is very big risk and hazard in underground mine. And people, when they talk about zero emission technology and battery technology, they're very much very often referring to what in case of fire, what are the protection levels. So to guide them through the whole process, how the actual technology works, what are the safety factors, and what do we have actually built into the whole system from the security and safety point of view, all the way to the usage of the machines. And after that, after the usage or after the life of the machine, what to do with the batteries when the machines are obsolete, or even if the technology is obsolete. So to guide them through that process. So first consulting, then of course the supplying of equipment, and then finally supporting that equipment. We actually had to create the whole business model with the new technology. So we don't have only battery machines anymore in our portfolio. We have a new business model which comes with the battery machines, which is battery as a service, storaging, and recycling, and the whole circle has to be fulfilled before customers could actually take that, in a way, quantum leap and move from zero emission from emission to zero emission technologies.
We have one question from Cox, I believe that is a company. What will be the scale of budget for mining companies to invest in new technologies to achieve such challenges? Maybe that's a question for both Stevan and Sergey from your experience.
It's difficult to put a number on the table, but I can say that every investment we do now, and every project we look now at, has a effectiveness angle, has a sustainability angle, and has a digital angle. And we try to screen all the projects from these perspectives and ensure that we have the best possible solution from all standpoints. And so we can say now that every investment that we make and every project that we do has new technologies, has sustainability agenda, and is bringing us closer to the strategic goals. And in terms of the overall investment situation, now we haven't scaled back significantly. We continue to invest and continue to modernize the existing businesses and to expand also across various business units.
Yeah. I agree with Sergey. It's practically impossible to say, and the reason is because if you're talking about just equipment itself, that there is a price difference in equipment. But again, we are addressing that issue as well. So, for example, you don't have to buy the equipment; you can lease the batteries and buy the machine, again to reduce the capex for the customers. But it can go all the way to what kind of electrical infrastructure you have, or a grid in the mine. Do you need to upgrade the grid to meet these zero emission requirements, because you need to charge these batteries? And again, the next step is where that electricity is coming from renewable energy sources or from coal power plants. So you can go from the machine to all the way to the power source. And we, in as much as we can reach with our equipment, we are trying to reduce that, as I was referring to. For example, as I said, if the price of a capital equipment is 30 or 40% higher than the diesel machines, then we say, okay, you don't have to buy the battery. Actually, you buy the machine, and we provide the battery. If there is a question of infrastructure and the grid in the mine, we say, okay, you don't have to upgrade the power supply, because it takes a lot of energy to charge 10 or 15 machines, and very quickly. We can make it by swapping the battery. So you charge the batteries very slowly, which is reduce the requirements for the infrastructure. So there's a different levels of investment, and in as much as we can reach with our equipment, we are trying to reduce that investment.
So basically what you're saying, there is not a specific budget for sustainability, but it's getting into everyday planning of new investments.
Exactly. And again, if it's a new mine, then you go with okay, I'm now building up the infrastructure, so I will know that I will have 20 or 50 or 100 machines run by batteries. that means that I will need to charge them, and that means this much of energy I will need. But from the other side, I'm reducing the ventilation requirements. And if it's Africa, then I reduce the heat, cooling or heating of the air, which is also very expensive. And that calculation really varies from site to site. That's why I said it's really hard to say.
Manik, Sweden, we like to see ourselves as a leading country in mature mining ecosystems. How do we work with other companies, with other countries to share our expertise?
I think there are two aspects to it. One is we work within Business Sweden. We also have a mission to engage with international companies and help them invest in Sweden. And there within mining, we have, for example, we have worked with Vale to set up an R&D center in Sweden. We have an MOU with Codelco, learn how Swedish mining ecosystem works, how can they get inspiration from Sweden. And we have also a few Australian mining companies who have got actually an explorations license to work in Sweden, Thalga Mineral being one of them. So that's one where we support companies directly in investing in Sweden and learning, and hopefully they bring back that experience back to their home countries, and thereby opening the doors for Swedish technology suppliers. The second level we engage is at the policy making level. So we have, for example, the SGU, the Swedish Geological Institute, which helps in supporting the countries where we have engagement with. We have our innovation policymakers who help in how do we work with innovation. And then we have our industry associations who are supporting the local associations. For example, we have a strong working with Colombia and Mexico as well. So that's at two engagement levels we work with. And there we work quite a lot with the Swedish companies, of course, to ensure that all our engagements are targeted towards helping them in more commercial success.
Thank you, Manik. I think we have a question to Sergey from Lars Erik Aro, chairman at Mobilaris Mining. What is your view on fully utilizing the value of connectivity in mines to achieve real-time information of production, people, assets? Is there a challenge? Do you have a challenge?
Yes, it's a big challenge, but also a big aspiration. I can say about our experience, we have been working on a set of projects that we call smart mines, smart metallurgical plants, where we use connectivity to understand what's happening to our ore bodies, to our equipment, our people. And it's been going now actively for 4 or 5 years. And I would say we have covered maybe 20 to 30% of what we want to cover in this period of time, with significant investment, with significant involvement of people and technologies. It's a very, very long way till we get to our aspiration. And it's really a complex way because, again, as Stephen was saying, it's a behavioral change. People don't want to have this complete transparency. I'm scared of this complete transparency. They're scared that they will be redundant also because of this, or that they will see their mistakes. But I think it's a big aspiration and something that we would really strive for, and I think that we will achieve eventually.
Thank you. Stefan, you were talking before about batteries, etc. Epiroc has been at the forefront of technology development for a long time, battery, autonomous, etc. Now, how do you see, how fast is the adoption of these technologies happening globally? The latest ones that you have, what is the speed?
The speed is slower than ambition level. I would say there's a lot of interest, and as a matter of fact, at the moment we are the bottleneck, I can say. also, but it's almost a catch-up effect, because at first the customers were really hesitating, but now I would say that acceptance rate is pretty high, and the more machines we have out on the market, and people can feel and touch, because in mining everything is about feel and touch. And if you can say, okay, show me where this machine is working, and then I will believe you, is kind of approach. And the more we have it, so it's a little bit. We expect that it will be exponential curve. It will not be linear curve. The more machines are out, the more will be required. And we are now in just the beginning. And the reason for that is not technology itself. It was actually the battery supply, because we are working with Northvolt, a Swedish company. As you know, it's a new company, still under construction, you can say. So that's pretty much. Otherwise, I would say that these fears that were present, that I was referring on the new technology, and especially on the fire in the mine, are fading away relatively fast, I would say, because we are selling the machines, battery machines, from Australia to Canada.
What are the major barriers for electrification? What do you see?
Again, behavioral switch, that we are now using a zero emission power supply. It will require also some new logistics in the mine, because you will have charging stations that you didn't have a requirement for the grid. What is the grid capacity? Do you need to upgrade the grid, etc.? So now we are still talking about none of the mines are fully zero emission, although many of them have that ambition in relatively short period of time. You can say 10 years is a relatively short period of time, because 7 years is amortization period for underground equipment. So yeah, I think it's that's most of the challenges are actually how to do the logistics and infrastructure around the machines. And of course, one actually I need to say that it's still, of course, that the battery life is around 4 hours plus minus half hour per machine. That means that you need to recharge during the shift. And that, again, comes into the logistics and infrastructure of the mine, how the machines and traffic control of the machines, and where Mobilaris actually is helping a lot.
Sergey, from your what are the barriers for electrification of your mines? What are the challenges?
I wouldn't say that we have big challenges in terms of electrification. In Kazakhstan, not for sure. For sure, not in Africa. It's a bit more complicated. But given the specifics of our operations, electricity is not always a viable solution or the best solution in terms of operations and in terms of environment. For example, we use large diesel trucks in open pit mines, and some companies try to use electricity, as in Australia, for example, they use electricity to power these trucks. But we did internal assessment, and we see more potential in gasification of the trucks. Switching from diesel to gas, for example, we see as a more viable operational option and environmental option. So normally it's infrastructure, but you have to look at it case by case and why certain decisions are made for different types of operations. Underground electrification for us is not as big part of a business as maybe for other companies.
I would just like to remind all the participants that you can ask questions in the chat, or you can also use the raise your hand option in Teams. We're slowly reaching the end of this webinar. I do have some more questions if nobody has. We talk about innovation. Innovation is everywhere at the moment, of course, also within the mining sector. And this will cover the whole chain of mining and also be a prerequisite for us. within the mining sector, what do you see, what competencies should mining companies attain to master the future challenges in order to stay competitive and relevant? Anybody?
I can start. So I think you point out very important thing about value chain, that you need to look end to end and optimize the value chain holistically. For us, it's a big challenge. We are a very integrated company, and it's a collection of different assets that used to work in silos. And our goal is to break the silos, integrate different parts of the value chain, and develop also competences to work effectively cross-functionally, also involving our suppliers. So we look at suppliers and need to look at them as partners, as part of the value chain, and try to integrate them and work effectively as one unit. So I think this is an important competence that we want to develop, and we try to develop. And of course, getting more flexibility, agility to react quicker to changes, to challenges, is also another prerequisite for successful survival and prosperity in any business today, probably. So we also trying to learn this soft skills and to bring it to our people and make sure we have the right tools and competences that we can use.
And basically, that's, I could see that also as a tips to maybe SME to position themselves as partners towards their end customers, and not just as suppliers.
Oh, that's definitely the case. Yes. Great.
Yes, and
I believe at Epiroc, this is the way you work in general.
One thing that when we talked about this and competence, I think that it's also one of the components we need to have in mind is a change of different management style, because you are handling different type of data. We're talking about the data scientist, artificial intelligence, ownership of data, and the data, and then the data from the full chain. And you have a very complex minds, are very complex organization with the hundreds or if not thousands of suppliers of equipment and components and pumps and machines and whatnot. And all this information, and each one of us are providing some kind of information. So handling all this information and knowing what to do with this information, because we also now already provide a lot of information to the customers who don't know what to do with them. And there are gigabytes and gigabytes of generic or whatever it's called, generated data that are totally and could actually be very, very smartly used if somebody knows how to use them. And that's what I'm referring when, different data handling and management decision based on that.
So basically, there is lack of also services when it comes to data analytics.
Exactly, and that's what we are trying to provide. But again, we are just one of the players of hundreds of players that are, on site, present. And so yes, we are trying to guide and contribute and to show how to use our data. As I said, we have a lot of machines that are fully automated, that are not used at all as automated machines. Generating a lot of data, those data are not used at all. So at least to help customers to realize the potential of the machines that they have, and later on eventually to put it in the bigger picture.
We have one question from a colleague of ours in our business unit office in Casablanca, from Salim Tiski. One of the sector's challenges in Africa is to negotiate fair exploitation contracts without running through some risks related to legislation, payment, etc. What are the most important elements in your opinion? I think maybe Sergey is the first one here to answer. What are the most important elements in your opinion that should be stressed on when we initiate those contracts discussions with decision makers?
Thank you for the question. I'm afraid I won't be able to comment. This is a very specific issue related to Africa that I haven't dealt with, so unfortunately don't have any recommendation on the issue.
Any comments from you, Stefan?
No, we are far away from that also. So no, I really totally blank.
Yeah, I mean, and this is it's an important issue, of course, to be raised. But maybe next time we will try to find an answer to that. Good. Do any of you from the panel have any questions to each other?
I have actually one question for Stefan.
Yes.
Stefan, maybe you can just lighten us with, there is a lot of discussions going on about interoperability. There are many suppliers, there are many large suppliers, and they are making their own autonomous vehicles, like you mentioned, gigabytes of data. Many times these are not able to talk to each other. So drilling equipment is not talking to, transport equipment and not to the material processing. So maybe that's also one of the reasons why you can't do much with this data in one sense. What's happening in that sense? We hear this, buzzword co-opetition. Are you cooperating with your competitors and doing anything around that?
We actually we decided a long time ago as a company, as Atlas Copco at the time already, and now Epiroc, to have open system. So our data are available for everybody else. Unfortunately, that's not from the competition side. So even if we have our machines and competition machines, it's no matter that our machines are open. We have individual agreement, for example, for utility vehicles and partnership or compatible equipment suppliers to ours, that we can exchange the data and they give us the data and customers can use that, or our machines can talk. But on a level where the competition is direct, we see hesitation from competition to share. Is really a problem for the customer. Still, we even had the problem with the Mobilaris and a few places where we needed something openness and something doesn't let us to access their data. So that is really a problem. We talked about ownership of data also, but Epiroc as a company is an open system. We can and we allow people to take the data from our machines. Unfortunately, we are at the moment the only one doing that.
Mm. Thanks, Stefan.
Thank you. And one last question, maybe basically to the whole panel, is from an SME, from a Swedish SME, Prej. How should a small innovative company act to reach the market quickly?
The question is to whom?
To everyone. But I mean, I think I can actually start from the Business Sweden. This is, I mean, basically all the actions that we are proposing in our report are relevant, and you can, of course, use Business Sweden. We have offices in most markets, and we also have very good packages for SME companies to basically bring you quicker to the market. And of course, using our networks, you can tap into than if you would be doing it by yourself. And this is exactly the point that, of course, you build your own networks, but we also build for Swedish companies. So we do have some basic networks where we can accelerate your entry into the market, either through the networks that we have or through advising you on how to do that in each specific case.
I can only add from our point of view, we like to work with the small companies because they are usually faster and more agile than us. And partnering with somebody of the big players is also a way to go. And we do that also ourselves. We do partner with the small companies that have a good products that could be compatible with ours.
Mm. Of course, that's also one way. With the big players, you are of course faster out in the on the global markets.
My advice would be to try to find a testing ground where you can pilot your applications, your products, to move quickly from concept to something that is working and is trialed in the real environment. And don't give up if it's difficult to get in touch with right people within big corporations, because it's big bureaucratic machines, and sometimes it takes time to find people who are interested in working with small business. But I can assure that all big companies, they try to look for innovation, and they try to find new ideas and have dedicated people who work with similar projects, application, and would be happy to guide you and help to integrate these solutions in the actual operating environment.
Yeah. As Stefan said earlier, feel and touch. That's it. Good. If we don't have any more questions, I would like to thank you all for tuning in, first of all, and thank you to the panelists for joining.
Thank you.
Stefan, thank you, Sergey, thank you,
Thank
Manik.
you.
And you can find our report on our website. It's available for download, and we will also share a link to this webinar recording so that you can check it out later or share with your colleagues. Thank you very much and have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.